Ethan Cole was not the kind of man who liked surprises. His days ran like a well-written schedule: meetings, emails, board calls, and a quick dinner with his 10-year-old daughter Lily before both of them collapsed into bed. Life had been that way since his wife, Claire, passed away 3 years ago. Everything became a system he could control because emotions were something he no longer trusted himself with. Lily had her mother's gentle eyes and her love for music. She sang around the house when she thought no one was listening, while brushing her hair, while feeding the cat, sometimes even while doing homework. Ethan had noticed it a few months ago when he walked past her room and heard a shaky version of a pop song. It wasn't perfect, but it was full of heart. He didn't know much about music, but he wanted to help her. Claire had always wanted Lily to take lessons, and for once, Ethan decided to do something that wasn't about business or efficiency. It was about his daughter. So one Thursday morning, between a product pitch and a meeting with investors, Ethan told his assistant to find the best vocal coach in the city. He wanted someone experienced, someone who could bring out the best in Lily. The assistant, as usual, said, "I'll handle it." A few days later, Ethan got a confirmation email. Voice coach M. Rivera booked for Saturday at 3 p.m. That was it. Ethan didn't question it. He rarely did. Saturday arrived quietly. Ethan spent the morning replying to emails and trying to finish a report, while Lily hummed in the kitchen. The doorbell rang at exactly 3. When Ethan opened the door, he froze for a second. The woman standing there was not what he had imagined. She looked to be in her early 30s, wearing jeans and a light blue blouse, her brown hair pulled back in a simple bun. She carried a guitar case on one shoulder and a worn leather bag on the other. "Hi, you must be Ethan," she said with a friendly smile. "I'm Maria Rivera, here for Lily's lesson." Ethan blinked. "Oh, you're Monsieur Rivera." "That's me," she said, laughing softly as if his confusion was something she saw often. "I hope I'm not too early." "No, you're right on time." He stepped aside. "Please, come in." Lily came running from the kitchen, her eyes wide. "Hi, are you the singing teacher?" Maria smiled warmly. "Yes, I am. And you must be Lily. I've heard you love to sing." Lily nodded shyly and glanced at her dad. Ethan gave her a small nod back. Maria took off her shoes at the door and followed them into the living room. It was large and modern, filled with white furniture and framed photographs, most of them of Ethan and Lily at different ages. A grand piano sat in one corner, covered in a thin layer of dust. "This is a beautiful piano," Maria said, brushing her fingers lightly across the keys. "It was my wife's," Ethan said quietly. "She played." Maria nodded softly. "That's wonderful. Maybe Lily can learn to play too one day." Ethan managed a polite smile. "Maybe." They started the lesson in the living room. Ethan tried to stay out of the way, but his curiosity kept him nearby. He sat at the dining table with his laptop open, pretending to work while listening. Maria's teaching style surprised him. She didn't start with scales or strict exercises. Instead, she talked to Lily like a friend. "What's your favorite song?" she asked. Lily hesitated. "I like that one from the movie Frozen." "Perfect," Maria said. "Let's start with that. Do you know the first few lines?" Lily nodded and began to sing softly. Her voice was shaky at first, her eyes darting toward her dad, afraid of being judged. Maria noticed and smiled. "Hey, let's make a deal. Right now it's just you and me, okay? Forget everything else. Music is like a story. You tell it with your heart, not your nerves." Something in the way she said it made Lily relax. Her next attempt was clearer, more confident. Ethan watched from the table, realizing he hadn't seen Lily this animated in a long time. Maria encouraged her gently, guiding her through breathing and posture, but always with warmth instead of pressure. When Lily hit a high note correctly, Maria clapped softly. "Yes, that's it. See how strong your voice is when you believe it." Lily's face lit up. Ethan felt something stir inside him, a mix of pride and guilt. He hadn't seen that kind of spark in Lily since Claire died. For the first time, he wondered if his structured, perfect schedule had made life too quiet, too serious. The hour passed quickly. When the lesson ended, Lily was still smiling. "Can you come back next week?" she asked eagerly. Maria laughed. "Of course. If your dad says it's okay." Ethan stood, still a little unsure. "We'll see. I'll talk to my assistant. After Maria left, Lily turned to him with pleading eyes. Dad, can we please keep her? She's really nice and I like how she teaches. Ethan hesitated. He'd planned to hire a professional from the top music academy, not someone who looked like she just came from a neighborhood class. But Lily's excitement was undeniable. All right, he said finally. We'll give it a try. Lily threw her arms around him. Thank you. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Ethan sat in his office with a glass of water staring at his laptop. On impulse, he searched for Maria Rivera voice coach. What he found surprised him. She wasn't a top academy teacher. She worked part-time at a community center, gave lessons in her home, and sometimes volunteered at local schools. There were no flashy reviews or big clients, just comments from parents saying how kind and patient she was with their kids. Ethan leaned back in his chair. This wasn't what he had expected, but maybe that wasn't a bad thing. The next Saturday, Maria came again. She brought a small keyboard and a notebook filled with colorful stickers. Lily ran to greet her at the door. Good morning, superstar, Maria said cheerfully. Ethan watched them from the kitchen as he made coffee. There was something peaceful about hearing Lily laugh again. Maria had a way of filling the house with warmth, something it hadn't felt in a long time. After the lesson, Maria sat with Ethan for a few minutes while Lily ran off to play. She's very talented, Maria said, and she has a lot of emotion in her voice. That's something you can't teach. Ethan smiled slightly. Thank you. She really enjoys learning from you. Maria nodded. That means a lot. I love working with kids. My son's the same age, actually. Oh, you have a son? Yes, she said, smiling proudly. His name's Noah. He loves soccer more than singing, though. Ethan chuckled lightly. Lily tried soccer once. She picked daisies instead. They both laughed, and for a moment, it felt natural, like two people having an ordinary conversation. Not a CEO talking to an employee. Maria packed up her things and got ready to leave. I'll see you next week? Ethan nodded. Yes, same time. After she left, the house felt quiet again, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of quiet that follows something good, something hopeful. Over the next few weeks, Maria became a familiar part of their weekends. She and Lily grew close quickly. They sang, laughed, and even baked cookies once while Ethan was in a meeting. The smell filled the entire house, and when he walked in later, he couldn't help but smile at the sight of them covered in flour. Still, there were moments when Ethan caught himself wondering how he had ended up here. He was supposed to be running a company, leading a team, making big decisions, not watching his daughter giggle with a music teacher who charged half the price of the professional he thought he'd hired. But every time he considered replacing Maria with someone more qualified, Lily's happy face stopped him. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Ethan came home to find Lily practicing in her room. The sound of her singing filled the hallway. It wasn't perfect, but it was full of feeling, alive in a way the house hadn't been in years. He stood by the door for a moment, listening. Then he quietly walked downstairs, sat on the couch, and realized he didn't want to change a thing. Maybe, just maybe, hiring the wrong teacher hadn't been a mistake after all. Still, Ethan couldn't shake the thought that Maria's life seemed harder than she let on. Her car was old, her guitar case was worn. Once, when she thought he wasn't looking, she paid for new sheet music with a handful of crumpled bills. It made him wonder what kind of woman stayed that strong, that patient while managing so much alone. One Saturday, after another lesson, Lily ran outside to show Maria the small garden she'd planted in the backyard. Ethan followed them a few minutes later, watching from the porch as Maria knelt beside Lily, helping her pull weeds and laughing about how stubborn the soil was. The sun caught Maria's hair as she laughed, and for a moment, Ethan saw something he hadn't felt in years: lightness, warmth, the quiet possibility of joy returning. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, letting the sound of their laughter drift through the air. He had no idea that this small mistake, this mix-up of two names, was going to change everything about his life and his heart. Over the next few weeks, Maria's visits became a normal part of life in the Cole household. Every Saturday afternoon, the sound of singing filled the living room, mixed with laughter and the soft strumming of Maria's guitar. Ethan noticed something had changed around the house. Lily was happier. She sang while brushing her hair, while doing homework, even while feeding the cat. There was a lightness in her voice that hadn't been there before. One Saturday morning, Ethan found her sitting at the breakfast table, humming quietly as she spread jam on her toast. "You're in a good mood," he said, sipping his coffee. "Maria said I'm getting better," Lily replied proudly. "We're learning a new song today." Ethan smiled. "I'm glad you're enjoying it." He tried to sound casual, but he was proud. It had been a long time since Lily had been this excited about anything. When the doorbell rang, Lily jumped up to answer it before he could even stand. "Maria's here," she called out. Ethan watched as Maria came in, carrying her guitar and a folder of sheet music. She smiled at him as she passed by. "Morning, Ethan. Ready for another concert?" He chuckled softly. "As ready as I'll ever be." Maria set up her things and started the lesson. Today, she was teaching Lily how to project her voice, how to feel the rhythm instead of counting it. Ethan sat nearby, pretending to work on his laptop, though he wasn't paying attention to the screen at all. He watched as Maria clapped her hands to keep the beat. "That's it, Lily. Breathe through your stomach, not your chest. Feel it here," she said, placing her hand gently on her own ribcage. Lily followed her lead, singing louder this time, her voice echoing softly through the room. "That was great," Maria said when the song ended. "You've got natural talent, you know that?" Lily's face lit up with pride. "You really think so?" "I do," Maria said with a smile. "But talent is only half of it. The other half is heart, and you've got plenty of that." Ethan watched quietly, a small smile tugging at his lips. He couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to Lily that way, with patience, warmth, and encouragement. When the lesson ended, Maria packed up her things while Lily ran upstairs to grab a drawing she had made for her teacher. "She's improving fast," Maria said, turning to Ethan. "She listens carefully, which is rare for a kid her age. I think she just likes learning from you," Ethan said honestly. Maria laughed softly. "Well, I like teaching her." Lily came running back down with a colorful drawing of a girl with a guitar and a small child next to her. "That's you and me," she said proudly. Maria smiled and knelt to her level. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. I'm going to hang this on my fridge." Ethan noticed the way Maria's eyes softened when she spoke to Lily. There was something maternal in it, something comforting. He realized Maria wasn't just a teacher. She was someone who genuinely cared. After Maria left, Ethan stood at the window for a moment, watching her walk down the driveway. She got into a small silver car that looked like it had seen better days. He noticed how carefully she started it, as if worried it might not cooperate. That night, after Lily went to bed, Ethan found himself thinking about Maria again. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet, but in a curious, thoughtful way. Who was she really? How did she stay so patient, so positive, when life clearly wasn't easy? The following Saturday, after the lesson, Maria stayed for a cup of tea. Lily insisted she sit down while she showed her a new song she had written. "You wrote this?" Maria asked, her eyes wide. Lily nodded shyly. "It's about Mom." Ethan froze. It wasn't often that Lily mentioned Claire. The name hung in the air like a fragile thread. Maria didn't rush to fill the silence. She simply nodded and said softly, "Would you like to sing it for us?" Lily looked at her dad. Ethan swallowed hard and nodded. "Go ahead, sweetheart." The song was simple, made up of short verses about missing someone but feeling them in the wind, in the stars, in music. Ethan didn't even realize he had tears in his eyes until Maria glanced at him quietly and smiled in understanding. When Lily finished, Maria reached over and squeezed her hand. "That was beautiful, Lily. Your mom would be proud." Lily smiled faintly and went upstairs soon after. The house felt quiet again, but in a different way, full of memory. Maria took a small sip of her tea before she spoke. "You've done a really good job with her," she said softly. "She's a wonderful kid." Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "Some days I feel like I'm just getting by." Maria nodded slowly. "I know that feeling." Ethan looked at her curiously. "You said you have a son, right?" "Yes, Noah. He's 10, same age as Lily." She smiled proudly, but there was a hint of exhaustion in her voice. "It's just the two of us. His dad left when he was 5. Ethan's expression softened. "That must have been hard." Maria nodded, her eyes thoughtful. "It was, but you learn to keep going. You find strength in the small things. For me, it's music. For Noah, it's soccer." There was a quiet understanding between them, Two people who had both lost something but kept moving forward for their children. After she left that evening, Ethan found himself thinking about her again, about how she carried herself, about how she never complained even when it was clear she was doing everything on her own. Over the next few months, Ethan began sitting in on more lessons. Sometimes he offered snacks, other times he just listened. Maria never seemed to mind his presence. One Saturday, while Lily practiced a song, Maria laughed and said, "Ethan, you're welcome to join if you'd like. Everyone can sing, you know," he chuckled. "Trust me, the world doesn't need to hear that." Maria grinned. "Then it's a good thing we're not the world?" "Come on, one verse," Lily clapped excitedly. "Come on, Dad." "Just one." Ethan sighed, shaking his head, but finally gave in. He sang one line, completely off key, and Maria burst out laughing. "That was brave," she said teasingly, "but we'll call that a warm-up." Ethan laughed too, realizing it had been a long time since he had laughed that freely. Later that afternoon, Maria was packing up when her phone buzzed. She frowned for a second and turned it off. Ethan noticed. "Everything okay?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just a reminder about my other job. I work at the cafe downtown in the evenings." "You work 2 jobs?" "Sometimes 3, she said with a small shrug. "Lessons don't always cover the bills. It's not easy being a single mom, but we manage." Ethan wanted to say something to offer help, but he didn't know how. Maria didn't seem like someone who wanted pity. She carried her life with quiet strength, like she'd already been through worse and learned to smile anyway. That night, Lily told him something that stayed with him. Maria said music helps when you miss someone. She said it helps you remember the good things. Ethan nodded slowly. She's right. He realized then that Maria wasn't just teaching Lily to sing. She was teaching her to heal. Weeks passed, and their bond grew stronger. Maria became part of their little routine. She brought homemade cookies sometimes, or stories about her son. Lily adored her and often asked if they could visit Maria's house to meet Noah. Ethan agreed one Saturday afternoon. Maria invited them for a small playdate. Her home was simple but full of warmth. Plants on the windowsill, drawings on the fridge, and a guitar leaning against the wall. Noah greeted Lily shyly at first, but within minutes they were outside kicking a soccer ball. Maria poured coffee for Ethan and smiled. "Sorry for the mess. Between lessons and shifts at the cafe, it's hard to keep up sometimes." "It's not messy," Ethan said honestly. "It feels lived in." They sat by the window watching the kids play. For a while they talked about small things. Work, school events, even recipes. It was easy, unforced. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged Maria tightly. "See you next week." On the drive home, Lily was still smiling. "Maria's house feels like home," she said dreamily. Ethan glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." That night, Ethan sat in his office again, staring at the piano in the corner. It had been years since anyone touched it. On impulse, he lifted the cover and pressed a single key. The sound was soft but carried through the room. He thought about Maria's words. How music helps you remember the good things. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time to stop avoiding the past and start living again. What he didn't know was that this small shift, the way his heart opened a little each time Maria smiled, was the beginning of something that would change both of their lives in ways neither expected. The next few months moved quickly. Ethan's company was growing faster than ever, and his calendar was overflowing with meetings, investor calls, and deadlines. At the same time, his weekends had become something he secretly looked forward to. Lily's lessons with Maria had become the calm in his busy week. Maria and Lily had built a strong bond. Their lessons were more than just singing. They talked, laughed, and sometimes shared stories about their families. Maria always arrived with a smile even when she looked tired. Her energy filled the house in a way that made it feel alive again. Ethan often found himself stepping away from work just to listen. He told himself it was because he wanted to make sure Lily was learning, but deep down he knew it was something else. There was peace in Maria's voice, something grounding that he didn't realize he needed. One Saturday morning, Lily was practicing her song for a school recital. She stood in front of the living room mirror, clutching the microphone Maria had brought for her, pretending she was on stage. "You're doing great," Maria said. "But remember, it's not just about the notes. It's about the story you're telling." "What does the song mean to you?" Lily thought for a moment. "It makes me think of Mom," she said softly. Maria smiled gently. Then sing it for her. That's how you'll make people feel something. Ethan was standing near the doorway listening quietly. For a moment he could almost hear Claire's voice in the room, encouraging their daughter the way she used to. When the lesson ended, Maria began packing up her things. Ethan walked her to the door. She really looks up to you, he said. Maria smiled. She's a wonderful kid. You've done a good job, Ethan. He shook his head slightly. I'm just trying to keep up. It hasn't been easy. Maria gave him a warm look. You're doing better than you think. Her words lingered in his mind long after she left. A few days later, Ethan's assistant reminded him about a major investor dinner happening the same evening as Lily's school recital. He froze when he heard it. You confirmed that date? Ethan asked, frustrated. It was the only time the investors were available, his assistant replied. It's an important deal. You said it couldn't be delayed. Ethan rubbed his forehead. The deal was crucial for the company's next phase of growth, but the thought of missing Lily's performance made him uneasy. That night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she looked up at him and said, You're coming to my recital, right? He hesitated only for a second. Of course I'll be there. Lily smiled and hugged him tightly. Maria's coming too. She said she'll help me warm up. Ethan smiled faintly. Good, you'll do great. But the week that followed was chaos. Meetings ran long, reports needed signing, and calls came at all hours. By Friday night, Ethan was exhausted. He told himself he'd leave the investor dinner early to make it in time for the recital. The evening came too quickly. The dinner was being held at a hotel downtown. As soon as Ethan sat down, his phone buzzed with a message from Maria. We're here. Lily's nervous but excited. Starts in 20 minutes. Ethan glanced at the time. He could make it if the speeches ended soon. But one of the investors began talking longer than planned, and before he knew it, 30 minutes had passed. His heart sank. He quietly excused himself and rushed to his car. The drive felt longer than usual, every red light testing his patience. When he finally arrived at the school auditorium, the parking lot was nearly empty. He ran inside just as the final applause echoed through the hall. Lily was standing on stage with Maria beside her, bowing shyly. Ethan froze in the doorway. He could see the smile on Lily's face, bright and proud. Maria knelt beside her, whispering something that made her laugh. The sight hit him harder than he expected. When Lily spotted him in the crowd, her face lit up for a second, then dimmed just a little. He could see the question in her eyes. Why weren't you here sooner? After the show, he found them backstage. Dad! Lily ran to him and hugged him tightly. You made it! I'm so proud of you, he said, hugging her back. You were amazing. Maria stood a few feet away, giving them space. When Ethan looked up at her, she smiled politely. She did great, Maria said. You should have seen her at the start. She was so nervous, but she pulled through. Ethan smiled weakly. Thank you for being there for her. Maria shook her head. I didn't do much. She's stronger than she thinks. There was a pause between them. Unspoken understanding mixed with something neither of them wanted to name. On the way home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, clutching a small flower she had been given after the performance. Ethan glanced at her through the mirror, feeling a wave of guilt. He had promised he'd be there from the beginning. The next morning, the incident made its way into a local blog. A photo had been taken during the recital, Maria and Lily on stage together, with a caption that read, Local teacher helps CEO's daughter shine. By Monday, a few gossip sites had picked it up, twisting the story into something else. When Ethan walked into the office, his assistant greeted him nervously. You might want to check the news, she said. He opened his laptop and stared at the headlines. Single dad CEO and his daughter's teacher. Are they more than friends? Ethan's stomach sank. The article was full of assumptions and blurry photos from the recital. It even mentioned Maria's full name and her job at the cafe. He immediately called her. Maria, I'm so sorry. I didn't know this would happen. Her voice on the other end was calm but hurt. It's okay, Ethan. I know how these things go. I just didn't expect it. People shouldn't be talking about you like that. I'll have my PR team fix this. Please don't, she said quickly. That'll just make it worse. Let it fade on its own, he paused. Are you sure? Yes, it'll pass. I've had worse things said about me before. But he could hear the strain in her voice. That week, Maria canceled one of the lessons, saying she needed time to deal with things. Ethan didn't argue, but the house felt strange without her voice filling the space. Lily noticed too. "Why isn't Maria coming this week?" she asked one night. "She's just busy," Ethan said. "She'll be back soon." But he wasn't sure that was true. A few days later, Maria showed up for the next lesson, but something had changed. Her smile was polite, her tone professional. The warmth was still there, but it was guarded. Ethan could feel the distance. After the lesson, when Lily went upstairs, he tried to talk to her, Maria, about what happened online. "It's fine," she said quickly. "Really, these things happen. Let's just focus on Lily, okay?" He nodded, but the words felt heavy. Over the next few weeks, Maria became quieter during her visits. She stopped staying for tea, stopped sharing stories about her son. Lily still loved her lessons, but even she noticed something was off. "Maria seems sad," she said one evening. "Did I do something wrong?" Ethan shook his head. "No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong," but deep down he knew the problem was him. One evening, after another long day at work, Ethan found himself standing at the piano again, staring at the family photos. One picture was from Lily's first day of school. Claire had taken it, smiling wide with her arm around their daughter. Ethan wondered what she would have said if she were still here. Maybe she would have told him to stop worrying about what people thought. Maybe she would have reminded him that some mistakes are worth making. That night he wrote an email to Maria but didn't send it. He read it over and over again, unsure how to say what he truly felt. He wanted to tell her that she had brought joy back into their lives, that her kindness had meant more than she realized, that he wasn't just grateful, he cared, but instead, he closed the laptop and went to bed. The next Saturday, Maria came for what would unknowingly be her last lesson. She smiled as usual, but there was a quiet sadness behind her eyes. When the lesson ended, she said softly, "Ethan, I think maybe it's best if I stop the private lessons. Lily's doing really well now. She's ready to join a group class. I can recommend one." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Is this because of the articles?" "It's just easier this way," she said. "For everyone." Lily ran up, holding a drawing she had made for Maria. "You're not leaving, are you?" Maria knelt and hugged her. "No, sweetheart. You're going to keep singing and I'm going to keep cheering for you. Always." Ethan stood there, unable to speak, as Maria gathered her things. When she turned to leave, their eyes met for a brief moment. There was so much unsaid between them. Gratitude, regret, maybe even something more. After she left, the house felt quiet again. Too quiet. Lily's song sounded softer, her laughter less frequent. Ethan sat on the couch that night, staring at the piano. He realized he had lost something important, not by mistake this time, but by choice. And for the first time in years, he wished he had done things differently. Weeks passed, and the silence in the house grew heavier with each one. Lily still sang sometimes, but not as often. Her songs no longer filled the rooms like before. The laughter that used to come during her lessons was gone, replaced by a soft quiet that Ethan couldn't ignore. He missed the sound of Maria's voice in their home. He missed the way she made things feel lighter, as if the world outside didn't matter for a while. He even missed her gentle teasing when he tried to sing along with Lily. But most of all, he missed the way Lily looked when Maria was around, bright, fearless, and full of life. One night, Ethan sat in his office, staring at the piano in the corner. It had been weeks since anyone had touched it. The dust had settled again. He sighed, closed his laptop, and walked over to it. He pressed a single key, and the sound echoed softly through the room. It reminded him of the night Maria told him that music helps you remember the good things. He smiled faintly, whispering to himself, "You were right. Maria." Across town, Maria sat at her small kitchen table, helping her son with homework. Noah yawned, stretching his arms. "Mom, I'm tired. Can I finish this in the morning?" She smiled softly. "All right. Go brush your teeth first." When he was gone, Maria leaned back in her chair, staring at the wall. There were drawings and photos, small reminders of her quiet life. She should have felt at peace, but she didn't. Every Saturday afternoon felt strange now. She used to look forward to those lessons with Lily. She missed her student's smile, her laughter, and the way she sang with so much heart, and, though she didn't want to admit it, she missed Ethan too. There had been something about him, something steady and gentle beneath his serious exterior. She had seen the way he tried to hide his exhaustion, the way he wanted to do right by his daughter even when he was unsure how. She had also seen how deeply he cared, even when he didn't say it. But after the rumors spread, everything changed. The way people whispered at her cafe, the questions from parents at school, the pitying looks, it had all been too much. She couldn't risk losing her job or her peace, not when she had Noah to care for, so she walked away even though her heart told her not to. A few weeks later, Lily's school announced a talent showcase. Students could perform songs, dances, or any skill they wanted. Ethan found the notice tucked in Lily's backpack one evening. "Are you going to sign up?" he asked. Lily hesitated. "I don't know. Why not?" She shrugged. "Maria's not here to help me." Ethan's heart sank. He crouched beside her. "Sweetheart, Maria helped you find your voice. You can still use it. You just have to believe in yourself." Lily looked down. "It's not the same without her." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Maria, how much she had done for his daughter and how much he had let pride and fear get in the way. The next day, he found her number in his phone. He typed a message but hesitated before sending it. "Lily's school is having a showcase. She misses you. We both do." He stared at the screen for a long moment before pressing send. He didn't expect an answer right away. "But that evening," Maria replied, "I'd love to come watch her perform. Please tell her I said hi." Ethan smiled for the first time in days. When he told Lily, her eyes lit up. "Maria's coming?" "She said she'll be there," Ethan said. "So what do you say? Ready to sign up?" Lily grinned. "Yes." The next few days were filled with quiet preparation. Lily practiced every night, using the small lessons Maria had taught her: breathing, posture, emotion. Sometimes Ethan helped her, clapping along or reading lyrics when she forgot the words. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Finally, the night of the showcase arrived. The school auditorium buzzed with excitement. Parents filled the seats, kids ran backstage, and the air was full of nervous laughter. Ethan sat near the front row, adjusting his tie, scanning the crowd for Maria. He wasn't sure she would really come. Then, just before the lights dimmed, he saw her enter quietly, slipping into a seat near the back. She wore a simple cream sweater and jeans, her hair tied back. When their eyes met for a brief moment, she smiled softly. Ethan felt something in his chest ease, a quiet relief he didn't know he'd been holding. When it was Lily's turn, she stepped onto the stage holding a small microphone. The spotlight hit her face, and for a moment she froze. Ethan could see her hands shaking. He wanted to rush up there, to tell her she could do it. But before he could move, Maria stood up from her seat and walked quietly to the side of the stage. She didn't say anything, just gave Lily a small nod and mouthed the words, "You've got this." Lily took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to sing. The song was simple and sweet, about courage, loss, and finding light again. Her voice wasn't perfect, but it was full of feeling. Every note carried emotion that made the audience fall silent. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He wasn't thinking about work or the company or the rumors. He was just a father watching his daughter shine. When the song ended, the crowd burst into applause. Lily's eyes immediately found Maria, and she smiled through her tears. After the show, Ethan found Maria near the exit. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. She smiled. "I couldn't miss it." "She was wonderful." "She was," he agreed. "Because of you," Maria shook her head. "No, because of both of you." There was a pause between them. The air was heavy but calm. Ethan finally said, "I'm sorry. For everything that happened, for not standing up for you when I should have." Maria looked at him, her eyes gentle. "It wasn't your fault, Ethan. People talk. That's what they do. But I should have said something. I should have told them the truth." She smiled faintly. "And what's the truth?" He hesitated. "That you changed our lives. That you made this house feel alive again." Maria looked away, blinking back tears. "You don't owe me anything. I was just doing my job." Ethan shook his head. "It wasn't just a job, and you know it." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Maria said softly, "I missed you both." Ethan smiled sadly. "We missed you too." Lily came running up then, breaking the tension. "Maria, did you see me?" "Did I do okay?" Maria knelt and hugged her tightly. "You were amazing." "I'm so proud of you." Lily hugged her back. "Will you come over again, please?" Maria looked at Ethan for a moment, then smiled at Lily. "We'll see." That night after they got home, Ethan found himself sitting by the piano again. Lily was asleep upstairs, the program from the showcase still clutched in her hand. He sat in silence for a while before softly playing a few notes. It wasn't perfect, but it felt right. The next morning, there was a knock on the door. When Ethan opened it, Maria was standing there holding a small folder. "Good morning," she said. "I thought I'd drop this off. It's Lily's practice book. I found it in my bag," he smiled. "Thank you." She hesitated for a moment, then said, "Can I come in for a minute?" "Of course." They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. For a few moments, neither spoke. It felt familiar, comfortable, like the old days. Finally, Maria said quietly, "I wanted to tell you something. When I left, it wasn't because I wanted to. I just didn't know how to handle everything. I was scared." Ethan nodded slowly. "I was scared too. Scared of saying the wrong thing, of making things harder for you." Maria gave a small laugh. "We're both pretty good at making things harder, huh?" He smiled. "Yeah, seems that way." There was a long pause before he said, "Maybe we could start over. No lessons, no gossip, no misunderstandings, just two people who care about the same little girl." Maria looked at him for a moment, then smiled softly. "I'd like that." They talked for a while longer about small things, school, work, their kids. It felt easy again, like something old but not forgotten. When she finally left, Ethan watched her car drive away, a quiet hope blooming in his chest. He didn't know what would happen next, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of not knowing. Because sometimes, the best things come back when you least expect them. And as Lily's voice drifted softly from upstairs, humming the same song she sang at the showcase, Ethan realized that maybe, just maybe, their story wasn't over yet. A few days after their talk, something quietly shifted between Ethan and Maria. They didn't rush to fix everything, but their conversations started again. Slow, steady, and honest. Sometimes they talked about Lily's progress in school, other times about work or how tired parenting could be. They laughed more now. The awkwardness that used to hang between them had softened into something warm. One Saturday morning, Maria brought Noah over to drop off some of Lily's music sheets. The two kids ran off to play in the backyard while Ethan and Maria sat on the porch with coffee. The air was cool, sunlight slipping through the trees. Lily's laughter mixed with Noah's shouts as they chased each other around. Ethan smiled, watching them. "They get along so well," he said. Maria nodded. "Yeah, they do. It's funny. Noah doesn't open up to people easily, but with Lily it's different." "She's the same," Ethan said. "She's been more like herself lately. I think seeing you again helped." Maria looked down at her cup, her voice soft. "I wasn't sure if coming back was a good idea, but I'm glad I did." Ethan smiled slightly. "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The kids were now lying on the grass, talking about music and drawing shapes in the air. It was a simple scene, but for Ethan it felt like peace, something he hadn't felt in years. Later that day, as Maria and Noah were leaving, Lily ran to the car. "Wait, Maria, are you coming to the concert next month?" "The one at the park?" Maria hesitated. "What concert?" Ethan explained. "It's a community event. Local kids and families perform. Lily wanted to sign up." Maria looked at him, smiling softly. "Then of course I'll come." After that day, they started seeing each other more often, not in big planned ways, but small, natural ones. Maria would stop by after school to drop off Lily's song notes. Sometimes Ethan would pick up Noah from soccer when Maria worked late. They weren't trying to create something new. It was just happening. One afternoon, Ethan invited Maria and Noah for dinner. He cooked, or at least tried to. The food wasn't perfect, but Maria laughed so hard at his failed pasta sauce that the whole evening turned into a light-hearted mess. The kids helped make dessert, spilling chocolate everywhere, and by the end of the night the kitchen looked like a storm had passed. But no one cared. They were all smiling. When Maria left that night, Ethan walked her to the door. For a moment, neither said anything. There was a quiet understanding between them. She looked up at him and said softly, "You're doing great, you know." "With Lily," he smiled. "Only because you helped me remember how." Maria's eyes softened. "You didn't forget. You just needed a little reminder." The next few weeks flew by quickly. The park concert was all Lily could talk about. She practiced every day, sometimes with Maria, sometimes on her own. Ethan helped her set up a small microphone at home so she could rehearse like it was the real thing. On the day of the concert, the weather was perfect. Families filled the park, kids ran around with balloons, and the smell of food trucks drifted through the air. A small stage stood near the lake, decorated with colorful ribbons and flowers. Lily stood backstage dressed in a simple blue dress, her hair tied back. Ethan crouched beside her. Nervous? A little, she said. He smiled. That's good. It means you care. She looked up at him. Will Maria be here? She'll be here, Ethan said. She promised, and she was. Maria arrived a few minutes later with Noah, carrying a small folder of sheet music. She smiled as she joined them backstage. I brought your song just in case you need the lyrics, she told Lily. Lily grinned and hugged her. You always think of everything. When it was time for Lily to perform, she stepped on stage holding the microphone with both hands. Maria sat at the piano beside her, ready to play. Ethan stood in the front row, his heart pounding as if he were the one about to sing. The music began softly. Lily's voice started a little shaky but grew stronger with each line. The song was one her mother used to love, a gentle tune about finding light after loss. As she sang, people in the crowd began to quiet down. Even the breeze seemed to still. Maria's fingers moved gracefully across the keys, her expression calm and full of pride. Halfway through the song, Lily looked toward her dad. He smiled, nodding in encouragement. Her voice grew even clearer then, full of emotion and life. When the song ended, the audience erupted in applause. Lily's eyes shone as she turned to hug Maria. We did it! Maria laughed softly. You did it, sweetheart. I just helped. Ethan joined them, pride written all over his face. You were incredible, he said, hugging his daughter. I've never been more proud. As they stepped off the stage, a local reporter approached them, asking for a quick interview about the performance. Ethan hesitated at first, but Maria gently nudged him. Go ahead. She deserves it. During the short interview, Lily spoke confidently about how music helped her heal, how her teacher encouraged her, and how her dad always believed in her. It was short, sweet, and full of heart. Afterward, the four of them, Ethan, Maria, Lily, and Noah, sat on a blanket by the lake, eating ice cream and listening to other performers. The sunset painted the sky in orange and gold. It felt like the world had slowed down just for them. Ethan glanced at Maria, who was laughing at something Noah said. For the first time, he saw her not as the teacher he'd hired by mistake, but as someone who had quietly become part of his life, of Lily's life. He realized he didn't want to imagine their days without her anymore. As the crowd began to thin out, he turned to her. Maria, he said softly. She looked at him, eyebrows raised. Yes? I've been thinking about everything that happened, the mix-up, the lessons, all of it. And I keep wondering, what if that mistake wasn't really a mistake? She smiled gently. What do you mean? He took a breath. I mean, maybe it was supposed to happen that way. Maybe we were supposed to meet like this. Maria looked down, a faint smile playing on her lips. You really think so? He nodded. Yeah, I do. The kids were chasing each other by the water, their laughter echoing through the park. Maria watched them for a long moment before turning back to him. Maybe you're right, she said softly. Some mistakes turn out to be the best things that ever happen. They both smiled then, not needing to say anything else. A few months later, their lives had quietly intertwined. Maria still taught music, but now she did some lessons at Ethan's house where Lily and Noah practiced together. Weekends were spent at the park, movie nights became a habit, and even ordinary mornings felt brighter. Ethan wasn't just a CEO anymore. He was a dad who made breakfast with two kids laughing around the table, a man who found peace in small, imperfect moments. Maria wasn't just a music teacher. She was part of a family again, something she thought she'd lost for good. One evening, as they all sat together after dinner, Lily picked up her old sheet music and said, Can we sing one last song before bed? Maria sat at the piano, and Ethan joined in softly, off-key but smiling. Noah added his laughter between lines, and Lily's voice carried through the house like a warm light. When the song ended, the kids clapped, and Maria looked over at Ethan. You still can't sing, she teased. He laughed. I know, but I'm trying. Maria smiled warmly. That's all that matters. Later that night, after the kids went to bed, Ethan stood by the window looking out at the quiet street. Maria joined him, a soft blanket draped around her shoulders. "It's peaceful here," she said quietly. He nodded. "It hasn't been this peaceful in a long time." They stood in silence, the soft glow from the living room lighting their faces. Then Ethan turned to her, his voice calm and certain. "You know, I used to think my life was too busy for something new, too complicated, but now I know better." Maria smiled, eyes gentle. "What changed?" "You did," he said simply. "You and the kids. You reminded me what really matters." Maria looked at him for a long moment, then reached out and took his hand. "And you reminded me that second chances are real." Outside, the night was still. The world felt steady and kind. Inside, laughter and music had returned to a house that once felt empty. The mistake that started it all had turned into something beautiful, something real. And as Lily's soft humming drifted down the hallway, Ethan and Maria stood together, both knowing that this time, they weren't just starting over. They were finally home.